watching. Everyone talks about success. Nobody talks about responsibility. Legacy is built through decisions you don't want to make. Weak men use family as an excuse. Strong men use business to protect and elevate their family. So here's a big thing what I mean about all this stuff, like legacy. We all hear about, you hear me say things like own your shit, ownership, right? So ownership, I call that own your shit. So if you want to provide for your family at the end of the day, you got to bring home the bacon. You got to make the money. Women, especially wives and partners in this case, really are attracted to that I would say that trait that men have, that they are the protectors of the family, right? So that's what your responsibility is. Your responsibility is to provide for your family. So don't get me wrong, you can be any age. When you're younger, you might not have as many resources are when you're older. It's just you have that mentality that you're going to bring home the bacon. Women are attracted to that individual. Very much so. I believe this is kind of Darwinistic in nature. And even when I was younger, I didn't have a lot going on, let's say monetarily wise, but I did have the attitude. I had the moxie where people saw that in me, that I was going to make something of myself. And that was very attractive. So now we're talking about legacy, building your legacy. It's the process and how you doing it. And building that for yourself and for your family. So I've been part of some groups, and they always talk about 7 generations in the past, 7 generations in the future. What they meant about that is, hey, you take responsibility for the past, right? Maybe people in your family weren't successful, and you're going to make yourself successful for the next generations going forward. I don't know. I saw something on Yellowstone about 7 generations, then they give the land to somebody else. I don't think both kind of are connected. Maybe Taylor Sheridan got it off of this. There must be some literature out there that talks about 7 generations, because it seems like I went to this group and they were talking about it, and then I see it on Yellowstone. In 7 generations, you're going to lose the ranch, or you're going to give the ranch back to the land. So just an interesting tidbit here that kind of connected together while I was talking. And so, like, legacy means a lot to a lot of people. To me, it's like you're building something, whether you're building your own family empire, and whatever empire that is. It could be something as just, hey, you're the first one in family to own a business, first one in family to own multiple assets, to own multiple businesses, to own real estate, to own stock, whatever that is. Building that up, building that legacy up and passing that on. And your family, your kids are watching all the time. They're watching what you do. They're watching your work ethic. They're watching your attitude. They're watching your actions, how you interact with people. Well, you don't know this, but your kids are watching everything you do 24/7. Hey, I have 3 kids, and they're always spouting out and saying things. And I'm like, where do they learn this from? My oldest daughter has this incredible work ethic. And I like to say, hey, she got that from me. She sees how hard I work, and here it's paying off as she goes to schools and applies to colleges. And she's getting into some of the schools that some people dream of at the end of the day. She's doing really well with that, the application process right now. But again, I'm talking about legacy, is building your legacy. People are watching you. They're seeing you go. So as you get into, maybe for me, it's like the zone, right? You get into that zone, and you're building all the time. It's kind of like your problem solving. You start attracting other people. Your conversations tend to go a certain way with people. You start getting bored with people who aren't really building stuff. My big thing is, I've had a lot of friends start a lot of businesses, and then they sputtered out. And at time, I found our conversations being boring. And the reason being was that the fact is, I am building something. I am constantly building, not just my businesses, building my legacy. And I like to bounce ideas off people when I see them stop building. I have lack of interest there. Maybe a little bit of lack of respect. I would say it's a lack of respect in the day, because they gave up, and I don't see myself ever giving up. What I'm doing today is for my family and the next generation. I want to leave, when I leave, to make sure I built something. And at the end of the day, is what I am actually building does make a difference too. So sometimes you could find a way, not only that you're building wealth, building assets for yourself, but you could build things that make the world a bit better place. I hope to be doing that. Not everything goes according to plan, as long as the attention's there and you feel good about, hey, your time you spent building stuff. I mean, that's the legacy I want to have at the end of the day. It's like Craig, he was here, he built things, he worked extremely hard, he was very fair, and that is the legacy I want to leave for my kids and my family, that I'm leaving them those tools so they could go out and either continue my work or take over the work that I've done over the years. Um, just providing for your family at the end of the day, I think that's okay. Um, and again, providing, getting a job, W 2, I did this, putting food on the table. Yeah, that it works. It works for people. Does it work for me? Not necessarily. I want to do more than just provide. I want to set an example. I want to build a legacy. Uh, it's not just about, it is a lot about building wealth and having financial freedom to make those decisions. But it's just not just about making money at the end of the day. There's more to it. What are you building? What are you leaving behind? I mean, just getting a W-2 job or getting a nice salary, being an executive, some cases that's not work. Some cases to me, and not really, I don't know, there's something about that. I want to build something. I want to own businesses, try different things out, buy assets, sell assets. Right now, I think when the market's changed, there is an opportunity for people to really accelerate up that wealth ladder, the American dream. So today's market, a lot of people aren't doing well. And there's all this new technology out there. So I see all these businesses popping up, these young guys. Hey, AI business, or help you out with AI, help you out with your AI. I love that attitude because they're just trying things. Granted, most of the stuff doesn't work and they try to apply it so they could teach you and you end up doing the work yourself at the end of the day, if you know what I mean. Just, DM me and we could talk about that on the side but just the energy that it creates. I love that energy. So I'm constantly talking to 20-year-olds and teenagers that are trying the new AI techniques. I learn all the time. I find that fascinating because they're building stuff and I love builders. So there's so much opportunity out there. I've seen people skip from one industry to the next. You see that a lot now. People are like 2 years here, 2 years here, 2 years. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit. I love that. Because they're constantly out there. Yeah, they're trying to make money, but behind that, they're building stuff. They like the idea of something new, being the first in that space. And I see that. with some young people. I got a couple nephews that are doing extremely well. They're at the cusp of what's new, and they're constantly kind of not jumping, I would say evolving, because when this stops working, you gotta change it up, right? So if you do the same thing again and again, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and not producing a result. And so you got to constantly change things. We had a discussion the other day, and my big thing, raising capital, and everyone around me talking. I'm like, guys, I was like, you're doing the same thing that we did in the last market cycle. What's new? What's fresh? Give me some ideas. And I'm staring at it. It's like, oh, geez, dear. It's like, well, this is an opportunity right now to do things. You got to think things through. Okay, what are we building today? What's different than yesterday? So we put together this, got this plan, and let's just say we put it together. That I really love our plan. I think our plan is definitely a great plan. We got to execute the plan, of course. You have a great idea and you don't have the team to execute it. That's a whole nother conversation we could have. And we're building something. So it's always fun to build it. And the way I spin it, so it's a good way to use the word spin or create the narrative, right? The way I frame it. So I'm framing it to the people who are around me, my peers, my staff, is that we're building something here while we're doing this. So for us this is what we're known for. Since we're known for this, we have a lot of hours put into it. And since we have a lot of hours put into it, we have a lot of information. So we have a lot of data. Now we could add technology to that data and the IP, which is years of experience. If you hear me say IP, let me just kind of talk about what that is specifically, because I could say IP and people could think of a ton of different things. Now we have an opportunity to take that IP and the data we have, package it, and throw technology on. So as we're doing things every single day, we're building. So it's not like we're doing something every day and not getting a result. We're doing something every day, training the AI, and at the same time changing the way we create revenue. So hey, that's a good mixture of things. And so at the end of the day, how that relates to legacy at the end of the day is building, right? I always go back to the word is building. So my family gets to see, hey, dad hits a rough spot or the economy hits a rough spot and dad's building again. And they constantly see that. And that's a legacy I will pass on to my family, to my kids, that they see dad's a constant builder. He's building stuff. So he comes home, yeah, he provides the bacon, but he's also doing more. He's building a company. He's building things across the board. At the end of the day, I like to say there's more to that. The legacy in that is this allows my kids to see not only that, but some of the stuff in my personal life and how recently I just kind of qualified for the quarterfinals in the CrossFit Games at my age group. So I like to how they see dad each and every day building. It's a word like I could say building stamina, right? Building strength, but going in each and every day and pushing himself. And that's a legacy that I want to keep for my family and my kids, is that they see me kind of pressing myself to my limits. Because I've always say that growth comes from when you get into that uncomfortable space. And what's more uncomfortable than running around with a bunch of 25-year-olds training for CrossFit, doing the master games, almost passing out each and every day and pushing yourself. So that's just one component of it, is when you're kind of working out. The other component of it's coming home and going, crap, jumping on the scale. If your weight's off, and going, okay, looking at the reality of the situation, I got to change some things in my routine here. And other things like, okay, I'm older, so I need more recovery. So that means I have to build up what? I have to build up some recovery techniques. So stretching a little bit more, get my flexibility going, maybe jump in the ice bath. I do have an ice bath, jump in the ice bath. Not every single day, but time it appropriately for my body to measure that recovery, do extra workouts, or change my workout structure around, because I need to build up my stamina. I got to build up my flexibility. I got to build my weaknesses up. So I think that's a great thing in life, is fitness and business. Here's what's my weakness. This is really affecting me. Now I got to build that up. Portrays and look at, kind of looking outside in. I got to build my business up, this weakness. And then I got to look at myself. Am I really building a legacy here? Or I'm just kind of spiraling in this repeat pattern that the 7 generations in the past did, of just being unsuccessful for whatever reason. So at the end of the day, legacy means a lot to me. At the end of the day, it's what I'm doing, what I'm building, and how my family sees it. It's not just bringing home the bacon. It's not just giving them money. I know that could be a toxic thing when you just talk about money to your kids and families and don't see what you're building. So definitely want to share that with them. And then also, I've kind of talked about a team, and this is CXC experience, right? And it's ironic that I just had a conversation, not a conversation. I sent an email to someone yesterday. It must be my subconscious. And it's about an interview process. And I don't know why I use this word, but I say, hey, if you want to build something, this is the right job for you. If you're not that type of person who wants to build, hey, let's not waste each other's time. And I don't know where that came from. I just said that. And that's where I am today, is I need a couple builders. One in this one specific area of my company. This is a new initiative I have, and another area that I'm looking for a builder on. And I met the person right away. I knew he was a builder. And he was like, yeah, Craig, I'm a builder. And I think this is a good match. So it's building your team too, who are builders. Yeah, you got to balance it out. But right now, I'm in the rebuilding stage, which I think most companies are. You have to be a builder today. You have to build the AI through your company. What does that mean? Nobody knows what that means. Like, hey, how do I use Claude or OpenClaw? Some of that stuff you look at, it's like, oh my God, it's over my head. I got to learn a whole new skill. It's kind of creates a little anxiety. It's like, crap, I thought I'm at this age in life. I got all this experience, and I got to learn all these new skills. Well, yeah, that's just how it is. That's just how it works. Markets change. You got to adapt accordingly. You have to gain those skills, right? So being a builder, you naturally want to develop those new skills. You're always building, you're always developing all the time. And it just becomes habit again and again and again with that stuff. So you do it. You lead your organization. You're a leader. Build the team around you. Build the team with builders. You got to balance it out. People need to know roles, and your team will be a reflection of you at the end of the day. So good. Let's not go too deep in everyone just like you. It's like we're not cloning. Well, maybe AI is cloning. I'm figuring out cloning's good for some parts of the business. Maybe sales, like you want to clone your best salesperson. That's always good to do. If you happen to be the best salesperson today, yeah, you could clone yourself. That's good with AI. But still, you got to build that out, right? So you got to be a builder first. Builder first, right? You build it and then bring in someone to run it. And then start again and again. Elon Musk, he builds things, brings people in to run it. All these successful people who own a bunch of companies, maybe they're builders. They go, they buy it for pennies on a dollar. Like right now, you could buy a lot of companies, pennies out, build it up, go on the next, go on the next, go on the next. You could have 5, 10 companies. If you really want to buy a company, it's a good time to get out there. Guarantee a lot of people are fed up. They are frustrated. They believe they don't have the skills to be successful in this market. It's a good opportunity to buy a company. Get an SBA loan. Bank's probably tough with underwriting. That's okay. Just factor in the purchase price. Just say, okay, I would have bought it for $2 million. Now, since the banks are only going to lend me $1.2 million, I'm going to give you $1.5 million. If you don't have $300,000 in cash, do a seller carryback for $200,000. And then if you can't raise $100,000, you should probably not run a business at the end of the day. Everyone should be able to raise $100,000. So it should be able to raise $100,000 in 30 days or less, or there's something wrong for you as an entrepreneur. It's not a hard thing to do. So again, building. It's a great opportunity to build today in today's environment, right? And, you don't need to read another book. Well, am I saying that? Look at all these books over here. It's a big bookcase. Look at another bookcase. Other side of the room. You don't need to read another book. These books, most people wrote these books after the fact. Well, after the fact, the market's going to change. I love, I read a book, I'm like, great. It's their experience or what they witnessed. But the internet, AI, it's moving so fast and it's learning, right? We're learning. We're all learning. How do you learn? Through data. How do you get data? Taking an action. So massive action. I have that saying, do, learn, grow, right? That came out before AI came out with that. Well, honestly, it's been around for a while. Was it Watson was the first one, IBM, who came out with that? So it's really taking action. So today, what are you going to do? What are you going to build? Where are you going to start? Just do something. Do something different. You're just going to habit doing that again and again and again because you have the opportunity to build. And it's up to you. You got to take action. It's not about reading books. I like conversations. I love being around other people who are building because it's just more of an energy thing. And that you bring that energy, maybe you go to a seminar or you go out to lunch with somebody and you bring that back into your home. Let's go start with home first. You bring that to yourself, pumps you up, home, and then bring it to the workplace. So it's really good to be around other people and have that energy of other people building stuff. It rubs off. And that's great. So when you're around someone else who's building and you develop a friendship, you could bounce ideas off them. Hey, what would you do? Or maybe just listen to them and see how they're doing things. So sometimes when you listen to other people, as long as they're trying, right? So as long as they're doing, let's say taking action, they're giving you data too of what worked or what didn't work. A great example is I was part of this group. I think it was in my early 30s, the CEO group, and it was called Vistage. For those of you who know Vistage, not a bad thing to join, no complaints. I had a great moderator, fantastic guy. So that kept me there for a few years. And one guy in the room never bought this kind of business before. First time buying this business. He was just a traditional kind of CEO. I'm going to walk into this business, never done it before and run it. And he did a great job. And he was going around the room saying, hey, he has this HR thing. So he decided to create a committee that would vote on more medical benefits for his staff. He had about 250 employees. And it was a very great gesture. He wanted to do something to benefit his staff, and it blew up on him. It became a nightmare because it was pointing fingers, favoritism, and here's a guy who's given some of his profits, rolling it back to his employees, and it blew up on him. So we had to go around the room and comment about it, and I was just like, hey, I would just like to say I thank you very much for giving me this information, because now I know I'm not going to do it because it sounds like a great idea. Obviously, it caused a lot of issues, something that you don't want to do in your workplace, because in your culture tanks, and if your culture tanks, your revenue tanks. And so that is an example of me learning from somebody else. So I am not going to do a committee to vote on medical benefits for people. It's all going to be straight across the board. That's just my takeaway from that situation. And that's why I like to be around other builders, because they'll share those ideas. And so maybe they have an idea that works. Maybe they have an idea that doesn't work. Some of those things, you got to unpackage them. You got to understand where the person's coming from when we're telling you things, of course. Remember, well, not everything someone says you have to do or utilize, but just nice to be around people at the same kind of stage you are at, that building stage. And then that's where those groups really work for you. And today there's a ton of groups out there. One of the things with the groups, DM me about this, and it's something that I'd love to talk about. If you're entertaining, joining a group, a mastery group, or hiring somebody, it's been a big thing in these last 4 or 5 years. I've hired a lot of people, so I have a lot of experience here, and I can give you my opinions on what works, doesn't work. I think going in, you need to have an open mind and ask yourself, what do you have to lose more than gain by not doing that? Because when I did it, I went in with a mindset that, hey, I'm going to learn, build relationships, kind of see how the game is being played and how other people do it. So I learned a lot. I think some people going in and saying, hey, I'm going to go and pay this person and I want immediate benefits and revenue. That to me didn't seem plausible at that time. I was really wanting to see what other people were doing, meet new people. And then after a while doing that, I'm like, oh, okay, I understood how that is. And I didn't see it as a waste of money, and some people see it maybe as a waste of money. So I can give you specific examples. I don't want to put anyone under the bus here. And then a lot of people I've met, that some of these people are prominent people online. Honestly, I was a little bit, because I didn't have the pedestal up like here. I was impressed in how approachable people were at the end of the day. I think almost everyone I met was approachable, a nice person. They're very cordial. They were not what you think, hey, they were not thought better of themselves than everyone else. They're very genuine people, and that was something that I was set back. These massive egos. You're meeting people. Of course, conversations are short, and again, DM me. Kind of understand how the game's played. I got through the door by somebody, so I had a little bit of a deeper conversation than you might just get by just, hey, doing a quick selfie with them. And then there's kind of a way to do that, and art form, I'd say. Well, I'll take that down to a science. Again, you got to present yourself well. Your first impressions mean a lot. Your words that come out of your mouth, be confident, have a presence, dress. Don't overdressing to me is sometimes doesn't work. Just dress appropriately to the situation. I used to wear ties and jackets all the time. Now I'm like, oh, who am I impressing? Well, back then maybe I was impressing someone like myself. Just do something that looks good for the situation you're in. All the tech guys nowadays, ties and jackets don't work. It's kind of stuffy. Wall Street, you have to do it. So it just depends on what industry you're in, because people expect certain ways for you to appear, right? And you don't want the first impressions do mean a lot. Words are a big thing. Words, how they come out of your mouth, not the stuttering, confidence, your approach, your body language. Those are big things. We'll do it. And then introductions. If you know people that introduce you, I sound like a broken record. Everyone says, hey, I need to be introduced. It's not like, hey, LinkedIn, do you know this guy? Do it. Like, look, my LinkedIn, I got like 30,000 people on LinkedIn. I think like 90% of them want a job or want to sell me a service at the end of the day, because I got that CEO title for like 20 years. So it's like, oh, do you know this person? Yeah, at one point in time, someone's hitting me up for money or a service or something. So, you got to kind of get to know people a little bit before they're going to introduce you. Because I'm not going to introduce you to my top 5. Would you? Probably not. So if someone's reaching out to you on LinkedIn, introduce you to this person, if they're of influence, are you going to really do it to a perfect stranger? Probably not. And they're teaching this and you're hiring these guys to do that? I don't know. Doesn't kind of make sense to me. And then, the word execution, CEO, Chief Execution Officer, Executive Officer, execution. You have all these ideas. I want to build, I want to learn, I want to network, but are you executing? Gotta stay silent because that's the thing. A lot of people fail all the time. Well, to execute a result, I'm working on this to get this result. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. That 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 is the key. Now, the way I keep it simple, you have to execute to get a result. You have to get that result in time to pay the bills, to be cash flow positive versus negative, right? Pay the bills for your family, pay bills for yourself, pay the bills for your business. So you have to execute some type of plan to do that. If not, you don't have anything, right? At the end of the day. So not executing is to me not doesn't register in my head. So there's no choice. I have to execute. And so the way I'll execute is by trying everything out under the sun until I get it right. With age, you kind of understand, you have experiences, you know how to do different things. So when you're younger, for me, it was just work more hours than anyone else. Surround myself with people who've done it before. Hey, how I done this? But when I'm in a new industry, it's like I got to test. I got to do things quickly, right? New market comes. Well, you're online. How are they doing it? How are they incorporating AI? Well, how are they making a profit doing it? That's a good question. How are people making a profit with AI? I don't know. I don't think a lot of people know. So recently, I think Palantir Technologies, and Palantir is the guy who founded it, a couple founders, actually came from the PayPal group, and they built this incredible company. It's just called a data intelligence company. They just got this incredible government contract to provide their services and their technologies and their data and AI to the U.S. government. Well, everyone's like, aha, that was the play. The play was to build this out to get that one revenue stream that will never go away. Now their valuation has gone up even more. And it's kind of a race to get, not just build this out so you get those revenue streams going. And that's one of the best revenue streams, these government contracts. It could be in the billions of dollars. And this was, I think I read this last week in the news. So the reason I bring this up is execution, right? Because they're working really hard, building new technologies. Everyone's building this AI, but everyone's like, well, there's so much money being pumped into it. How are they gonna make a profit? And here's a case where there's all this money being pumped into it, and now they got the revenue coming in. And it's the same thing for any business. Is like, hey, you could build it, but if no revenue comes on, you have nothing. And this is really ironic because I just had this conversation yesterday, did a live webinar with my shareholders talking about revenue and what we're building and how we're going to have revenue at the same time and our kind of phased approach to it. And here I am talking about the same things about execution and how you can execute it. And that's where you go back to your team, right? You get your team of builders. You know, you got to come together on this and how we execute it. And you know, it's an iterative thing. And so as a leader, you got to look at, okay, I have this person in charge of something. Okay. Now, what are my realistic expectations? Well, this has been done before. I'm going to hire someone who's done it before and has done it well. Okay. Someone who's done it before has done it well. Okay. And let me take a step back. Okay. Markets changed. So what skills do I believe, right? I'm in charge that it takes to execute this specific role in this market. And so let me hire appropriately for that. And that's a little tougher thing because the market has changed. So now one of the big things I'm doing is focusing on branding, one-to-many sales. And so I am looking for salespeople who want to be on the camera, want to do one-to-many. They don't need to sell one-to-many. That could be me, but they have to enjoy it and want to learn that skill set because eventually I'm going to have them do micro sales, right? Smaller groups. I'll call micro sales 5 to 10 people. I think last night I did 100 people. A week ago, 500 people. Just a Zoom, right? I got a studio built out. And so what I'm talking about here is, hey, so on this specific role I'm looking for, I had one guy in this role and mechanical, technological failure. I couldn't get on the camera. And I asked him, I said, just jump on the Zoom call on your laptop, just warm everyone up. And he wouldn't do it. I'm like, oh my God. And he wouldn't get on. He was just like, no. And I'm like, hey, this is part of the role. I told you we're gonna have to do one-to-many sales, and you wouldn't jump on the camera like a little Google Meet meeting before we jumped in a Zoom meeting. Yeah, he didn't last long because he didn't get a comfortable space. Two, it's like we went over this through the interview process, and he said he would be doing this stuff. So to me, that was more of a core value thing. Someone breaks your core values, one strike, right? That's how I look at it. Hey, you're breaking my core value, and then I see a pattern. You got to remove that. That's kind of a cultural nightmare. And I get to like executing, right? So he couldn't execute what I needed in this role. And this role was I needed sales. I needed someone who knew that specific product, which I had, one, two. And then the third thing, I needed someone who wanted to learn group sales, who really was trying to develop that skill set. And so I didn't have that. So that I could find, right? And some of these things you can't find. It's like, how'd you integrate AI across your company? Well, everyone's learning. So how did you successfully integrate AI and create revenue? Everyone's learning. How do you successfully integrate AI and run your day-to-day operations? Well, everyone's learning, right? So, okay, when you're interviewing, you have to go maybe a little deeper. Tell me what you built before. Tell me about the obstacles you overcame. Tell me about cash flow issues. Tell me about revenue issues. Tell me what happened, funding issues, and kind of dive deeper into it. Recent interview, someone was telling me how he built this system, and I just asked a couple questions, and he ran with it. So if you ask the right question, the interviewee should be just giving you a lot of information. Again, I stick resumes through AI. I stick role descriptions, values, kind of mix it all up, right? And then it points out. That's kind of one of the filters as well. I try to do that pre-interview, definitely post-interview. If I like someone, I'll do it deeper and maybe run it on a couple different applications to make sure it's right and give it to somebody else to look at the same time. But I get back to like, hey, execution. We're talking about execution here, and execution's the thing. It's definitely in this market. It is tough to do. Is how do you get people? And I think that's where a lot of companies are starting to lay people off. It's not like they're laying you off because the fact they want to have layoffs is just like, hey, they don't see the potential in you to execute what they need to be executed in this world. So that's where you have to adapt to those skill sets. Again, most of my stuff is for entrepreneurs, business owners, not really employees, or employees don't want to be employees anymore. So I'll tend to stay away from that topic. As owners and entrepreneurs and people want to learn stuff, we're constantly developing skills at the end of the day. And I'm sharing with you some of my stories. Again, my experiences with you is the hiring process in today's market. How do you do it appropriately? How are you going to hire people to execute those things? Because a lot of roles are changing, and so these traditional roles, you got to nail. You got to make sure that person's executing, so you can move on to the next. Because then you're a little bit there's less data, there's less experiences there, so you're going to other kind of areas of expertise, and does it translate into what you need today? Granted, IQ tests, I've been told, are really great to have, and compliance reasons. I've been seeing if I could do it, but I think with the HR laws, at least in California, I don't think you can give an IQ test to do it. And I don't know. I'm not a compliance saying that is like, that's a big thing because people with higher IQ could grasp things. Too high of IQ, everyone's like, I want people this high IQ. No one's going to talk to you because a lot of people with really high IQ are a little different. I'm a little different, right? I've some areas I've tested high in, and it's just difficult. Some people I'm like, oh my God, they're not getting it, and I remind myself, what do they need to get? So I'm like, and that's a whole other conversation talking about that. I'm really big first principles guy, and figuring out who else solves problems that way. And you could tell after a while when you go into a room and you're trying to solve something and they get hyper focused on like one part, like this is going to solve this whole issue. And I'm just like, you guys aren't kind of seeing the whole thing. Here's where we're going. Here's, it's just, for me, it's a pretty simple process. And it takes me a second to get it. And I know if people don't get it, it's like I'm in that room for an hour. I'm like, that's like takes 1 second. So that's IQ. That's where the IQ comes in. It's important. So and just kind of digging deep into that stuff. But again, we're talking about execution here, and to execute as a team, right? You need the right team members. You need to nail the roles you can nail. You gotta go a deeper level to see if people are really going to integrate the AI and see they're just not there for a job, and if they're builders. So if they're builders, and ask them what they built, and they have some skills that in the fields that you're in, that's great. And then they have a record of being successful and building stuff. That's someone you probably want to add to your organization today. And there are people out there. There is people switching jobs in this new economy. And if you're building something, you should attract those builders. The big thing, leadership, right? Man, such a crazy word we talk about leadership. And I don't know, it's been misused. And what I mean by that is, okay, to be a leader, you need to get out in front. To be a leader, you need to hire the best. To be a leader, you need to bring in funding. To be a leader, you got to do the dishes in the office, right? There is a million different versions of leadership. Look at all these books. I'll tell you something different. Each one has an author, though, and that author had his opinion, right? Or her opinion on that book. So what is it? What is it at the end of leadership? You could read all these books, but if you don't get out there and do stuff and figure out what works for you. Hey, I'll grind all night long. Doesn't mean I'm the best leader, by just grinding and working 24 straight hours. I think when I'm doing that, something's broken. Something's broken with my team or my system if I'm grinding it out. In some cases, I might have to grind it out. So nothing's beneath me. I think that's good. But some leaders say, hey, you know what? It is beneath me. I'm going to do whatever it takes to kind of make sure I hire someone to do it. Ever hear the saying, hey, I own a Michelin star restaurant. I lost my chef. I go in the kitchen, cook myself. But all your guests are expecting this Michelin star service. You're not a Michelin star chef. So what do you got to do? You got to go out and find the chef, or you're going to turn the restaurant's going to turn down. So I would hey, restaurant's closed for renovations for 60 days. Bust my ass to find another chef that's just as good as the one I lost. If not, I'm going to move on to a new venture, right? That's just the way I don't think this is a choice there. I don't think this is I could do. You can't, because you are advertising yourself as this. You're not this if you're doing the work. So parlay that to your business. What does that mean at the end of the day, right? So, hey, I'm a great leader. Well, what does that mean? I'm a great leader. When things get tough, I jump in, I pound the sand and work hard, and I'll do whatever it can. So I was like, look, if you're trying to build a system and you're doing all the work yourself, that's counterintuitive. You got to build a system. You can't do either or. You got to build the system, right? So that's a business. You don't want to be in this business. You want to be on the business. So are you a business builder at the end of the day? And you got to ask yourself, if not, then go out and find somebody who's done it before and negotiate with them, right? Sell them. I'm a salesperson, right? Am I that great of a salesperson? I always ask myself, well, I think I am, but sometimes I do ask myself that question. You got to just be honest with yourself. And I think leadership is more about being introspective and understanding the gaps than anything else. Is understand the gaps with yourself, first of all, and then with your organization. And so identifying hey, if I founded a company and I don't have the right leadership, I better figure that out, those gaps with that out. Or I found a company and I'm stuck, I can't scale. I got to figure out the systems, right? And identifying that. And everyone's more focused on how you approach people or how do you approach a problem. Yeah, I mean that's part of it, but the larger level is just do you understand the gaps? Do you understand your own gaps? Do you understand your strengths and weaknesses? Do you have the right business plan, right? And if you do have all those things, it goes back to execution, and you got to start with yourself here. So I think leadership to me is really being aware of yourself first and foremost, your limitations, what skills you need to develop, and applying yourself to it. And yeah, not always honing on your weaknesses. If your weaknesses are something that may prohibit the business from growing, you have to solve that. And to me, it's okay, maybe I'm weak in this area, find a complement to do it, right? It's your choice, your life. Everyone's gonna say leadership is hey, I'm gonna stick myself out there. I'm gonna go charge first in front of my troops, but really it isn't. If you've ever seen the show Band of Brothers, there's a great scene in, I think it's in the Battle of Bastogne, Battle of the Bulge, and I think Captain Winters wanted to go on the front lines, and the colonel said, "You're a major now, you can't do that anymore." And he liked to lead from the front, and he was doing this all the time, and he learned in this case he couldn't. He was more valuable in the back, and that is a good scene to see, because at the end of the day, if you're always leading in front, especially in that situation where a lot of people are dying on the front lines, you're more valuable back here. So you got to figure that out for yourself. In some cases, you might have to lead out front and you have to grind it out. That's being a good leader. But is that a good leader? Because that means you're doing all the work yourself. You're not hiring the right people. You don't have a systems broken. Or is that kind of taking a step back and looking, okay, I have to allow this to happen organically here. I have to put the right pieces in place. I have to build the right system. Or in some cases, I just got to walk away and maybe this is not the right thing for me and something you don't want to do. So, leadership and then, how you approach people and do all that, that's just kind of learning. That's just experience. And again, it's a lot easier if you surround yourself with people who think the way you do. Hey, can you get this done? Great. And other people are like, hey, but if you're in this organization where it's like, hey, get this done. Well, you didn't ask me about how I felt today. It's like, oh, for me, that's not going to work. This is who I am. So if you hire the right people, it's easier to do. So that's understanding the gaps in your organization. If you're in corporate America and you have to do all this stuff and it's always HR, the more someone talks about HR and the more they do it is one, look at the company you're working at. Big companies, a lot of HR issues, right? We're in a kind of a lawyer world. But also look at the smaller companies. If they're always talking about HR, that means they have an issue with either their hiring, their product, or something up with the business. And that's where I think that as leadership is identifying where that gap is. The leader is not identifying that, hey, maybe I have a great business. I'm just not choosing the right team, right? It's not like I'm not talking to people the right way. Maybe you just didn't build the right team out or didn't have the right expectations. There's a gap there. And so that I think you really got to start with yourself. And to be a great leader, you need to develop yourself first and foremost and understanding your gaps and your strengths and weaknesses. And just moving on is just like, and I always go back to family and how they watch and see what you're doing. This is about legacy. It's about you building a legacy for you, your family, right? Your kids. Your kids are watching you. So I could say with confidence that my kids see a hardworking father. They see someone who's going to tackle every problem. They're going to see maybe a little overboard in some cases that like, hey, I'm going to go a million miles an hour. I'm going to press myself. I'm going to learn more skills. But even the compassionate side for me, it's like listening to my I have all girls, so listen to my daughters and hearing them out. Showing up, being present is a big thing. It's hard to do when your mind is going a million miles an hour. The kids, wife sees this. There's tricks because when they're playing, you got plenty of time to jump on the phone and get stuff done, or you put the headphones on them. There's opportunities to get work done intermittently with your kids. Honestly, I'm gonna admit it. I'm being authentic here. So when I do take the kids out on the weekend, they're in line for ice cream. I'm on the phone doing some stuff, or I'm on the car and they're playing with their devices or they're listening to music. There's always an opportunity for me to get a little work done. If we go to the playground, I may have a little book out and write down some ideas. But then also I'm pleasant there playing catch or whatever they want to do in the moment themselves. So yeah, I do get caught a couple times at like some events, maybe be on my phone. So I realized like, okay, just keep the phone in the car for 20 minutes. Then I'll go, okay, I'll run to the car and then I'll get my phone out or something like that. Because the wife catches you sometimes. It's not the greatest conversation. But anyway, it's about your kids seeing you and the legacy you're building at the end of the day and seeing you come in every day having that confident attitude. It's like, hey, I'm not worried. I'm not going to be screaming and yelling around the house. I'm going to take massive action. For me, they see me work hard. They see me spend time with them. They see how I treat my wife. They see me participate around the house. I have little chores I do around the house each and every day. So I want them to start partaking in that stuff. So the legacy I'd like to leave for my kids is, hey, here's a person who in life went for it. Here's a person who was doing things all the time. I don't want to say trying, is doing things and learning and developing and not stopping, insatiable appetite to learn, constantly learning new techniques, constantly developing new skills, meeting people, talking about new things, doing different ventures, and never giving up. And that's where I'm leaving it with you is if you want to learn more about it, subscribe to my channel, DM me. Love to have some conversations if you're going through the same things I am. If you built something, if you're trying to build something in this environment, the more of us that we could chat with each other about our challenges, maybe we could take some, not shortcuts, but maybe we could get to our goals a little faster. My name's Craig. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to my channel.